What's up guys, Noor here and welcome to Book of Showtime Chapter 16. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to leave a like and share with your friends. And if you have a topic you'd like for me to cover for Book of Showtime, leave it in the comment section down below or anywhere you can reach me on social media. So guys, just a quick update. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, Tuesday the 21st, I just want to say that I'm going to be taking a short break from Book of Showtime as Resident Evil 4 Remake is dropping this week and it actually might break street a little early for me, so fingers crossed on that. And baseball season is starting up soon, and I'm a huge Mets fan and a season ticket holder, so I'm going to be watching the games. And with the home opener coming up, I'm going to be working a little more hours at work so that I can afford a bottle of water at Citi Field. Even though I won't be putting out chapters actively, I'm still going to be working on the side. I got a bunch of good suggestions from you guys. I got 3 really good ones, actually, as well as some of the other stuff that I'm working on and stuff that I might get in the interim. So, inshallah, we'll be back around the later half of April with some cool new chapters. Enough with the formalities, now we're on to today's chapter. I'd like to welcome you guys to a new sub-series on the channel called Showtime 7s. In these chapters, I'll be doing a top 7 list based on topics of mine and the community's choosing. I prefer to do a top 7 list because I feel that 10 is too much and 5 is too little. Plus, Showtime 7 sounds catchy, right? Remasters and definitive editions are all the rage these days. It seems like we're getting one almost every quarter. We're getting a big remaster. It's an easy way for a studio to make cash while also introducing a new generation of fans to a game and gauging interest in potential future installments. Let's take Alan Wake Remastered, for example. If you didn't have a PC or an Xbox, you just outright missed one of my favorite games of all time. But now it's been released on all available modern platforms, even the Nintendo Switch, and like nothing goes to Switch. So it's always good when more people have access to your games. Another reason I dig remasters are because you get an excuse to replay your favorite games, you know? We all have that one game we want to replay sitting on our hard drives, right? No? Just me? Okay, I know some of you are lying, but whatever. In today's chapter, I'll be going over 7 titles that would benefit from a few fixes and a fresh coat of paint. Number 7, Alan Wake's American Nightmare. Since we talked about Alan Wake in the opening, why not bring back this little gem of a game too? American Nightmare was released back in 2012 as part of one of those Xbox arcade promotions. It wasn't the summer of arcade, it was a spring equivalent, and I tried looking this up, I swear. And do you guys remember arcade games? They were like the smaller budget titles and indie games that would drop on Xbox. It was awesome. Anyway, I'm reminiscing again. American Nightmare is like a half sequel, just something to keep tabs on Alan Wake and his struggles in the dark place. American Nightmare saw Wake fighting against an evil version of himself named Mr. Scratch as he tormented Wake across a time loop. The game had new weapons, enemies, and a survival mode called Fight Till Dawn, which was really cool. And you guys know me, I really like survival modes in games. Every game should have a survival mode. Honestly, for an arcade title, it had a longer shelf life than the main game, mostly because of the aforementioned survival mode. Whereas the original Alan Wake saw a remaster a couple years prior, American Nightmare is still stuck on Xbox and PC as is. Remaster would be a neat way of making sure all of the new fans were able to see everything they could in the Alan Wake universe. How amazing would it be if Remedy were able to stealth drop this leading up to Alan Wake 2, which, for the record, I'm really excited for Alan Wake 2. I used to pray for times like this. American Nightmare doesn't show its age as much as the other games on this list, which is why it finds itself so low, but a fresh coat of paint never hurt anybody, right? I'm a huge Alan Wake fan. I've played American Nightmare many times. I played the original game a ton. I loved playing the remaster again. I've even read the novelization 3 times, and I've been pondering going back and playing American Nightmare again since it's backwards compatible on Xbox and the remaster just came out a few years ago. So a chance to replay American Nightmare with some enhancements though, that would be really cool. Number 6, Grand Theft Auto 4. After the mess that was the trilogy definitive edition, Rockstar reportedly scrapped remasters of Grand Theft Auto 4 and Red Dead Redemption, which honestly I can put right up here alongside Grand Theft Auto 4. This was extremely exciting as GTA 4 is arguably the best in the series pound for pound. The story was tremendous as all of the characters are great and extremely well written no matter how small of the part they play. Not to mention, this game features one of the best written protagonists in almost all of gaming. The tone was a lot more grounded and gritty, which some people didn't like, but me personally, I loved it. The gameplay, sublime. From the tight cover-based shooting and brutal but deep hand-to-hand combat to probably having some of the better driving we've seen in the GTA series. It's a little upsetting that Grand Theft Auto 5 went backwards on the hand-to-hand combat, but I guess because of Nico's training, it's easier to tailor the system to him as opposed to GTA 5 where you have 3 protagonists, but I'm getting off topic, that's for another time. As a native New Yorker, Liberty City was awesome to traverse, and every location within the map felt like it had a purpose in the story. 2 standalone DLC campaigns, The Lost and Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony, were probably bar none the greatest pieces of DLC in gaming history, and I am willing to die on that hill. If this is Red Dead we're talking about, I would say the same thing for Undead Nightmare, and it's kind of funny that Rockstar put out like 2 all-time great games back to back. Remastering all 3 of the narratives between Lost and Damned, Out and Gay Tony, and GTA 4 into like one package would be a dream release, because it's really cool when you're playing through the game how all 3 protagonist stories influence one another. Similar to Alan Wake's American Nightmare, Grand Theft Auto 4 doesn't really show its age too much in terms of graphics and gameplay, but adding in some of the finer quality of life changes showcased in Grand Theft Auto 5, like the weapon wheel, the car customization, the stat improvement, that would be great for new players and veterans alike. If you haven't played Grand Theft Auto 4, you're missing out big time. It's one of the few games on this list that's both functioning and available on most modern platforms. I actually remember playing the expansions first, because I got the episodes from Liberty City pack at GameStop for my birthday, thank you mom, and the Lost and Damned, man, what a story. And for anyone else who's played Gay Tony, did you guys think that those missions were really hard? Mainly those Yusuf Amir missions, and I'm talking in part that one where you're on the train, you have to steal the subway car. That mission, those missions were hard, man. You have to do the most. I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of a dirty little secret. I never actually finished Grand Theft Auto 4. I got all the way to the end, but I encountered this glitch on the final mission, and no matter how many times I replayed the mission, the glitch kept popping up. So ideally, a remaster would snuff out bugs like this, because even if you're not into Grand Theft Auto, 4 is a masterpiece. It's a very timeless game, and it deserves to be showcased on modern consoles and take advantage of this modern tech we got, man. Playing open world games like that on a solid state drive, it's perfect. It's beautiful. Number 5, Time Splitters Future Perfect. I'm surprised it took this long for Time Splitters to be mentioned on Book of Showtime, because I'm a huge Time Splitters fan, and Time Splitters Future Perfect is actually tied with the original Resident Evil 4 for my favorite game of all time. It was released on modern Xboxes a couple years back as part of the final wave of backwards compatible games, and seeing one of the more criminally overlooked games in history optimized for current gen felt like a major tease. Future Perfect was rich with content. You had a campaign that was fully playable in co-op, and it would actually be slightly different if you played solo or co-op. Like, certain characters wouldn't be around for some sections, and you had to do them by themselves, and even when they are around, they would talk more and add to the lore. For the arcade league and the challenges that would put you through the ringer, and man, were those levels hard or what? Like, if you've played Time Splitters Future Perfect, you know what I'm talking about. Those missions were really hard. The early tiers were like, oh, these are easy, and then it's like, they start to get harder. It's like, okay, these are a little challenging, and then by the time you get to gold, it's like, okay, who can beat these? You had a deceptively deep map creator that you can use to make multiplayer levels on your own, or your own missions, and if you had online, because the game was for the original Xbox and PlayStation, if you played online, you could share maps with people, which was awesome. And to cap it off, you had a tremendous multiplayer suite with tons of modes and over 150 characters, tons of weapons. It was awesome, man. It was like Perfect Dark cranked up to 11. Obviously, the original Xbox Live is gone, and with it, the Time Splitter servers. And being that for some strange reason, Microsoft has yet to implement a share play feature to Xbox, which it makes no sense. I mean, they have all these games on Game Pass that are indie games that have no online. They have all these backwards compatible games where the server shut down. Share play would make sense, but that's for another time. Currently, there's no way for players to take advantage of the game's wildly addictive multiplayer unless you get all your friends together in one room, and when your friends are in Indiana, Tennessee, Toronto, that's not really something you can do. Obviously, Parsec is a thing, but what if you don't have a PC, or what if you just don't have good enough internet to do Parsec? Remastering the game with online and crossplay, that would honestly make me cry, alright? I would actually legit cry. Truth be told, a remaster doesn't really have to do too much but add online. The game still looks beautiful, and I never came across any major glitches or bugs. Just having that online component and no other changes would be massive, but with a new Time Splitters installment on the way, I feel a remaster of Future Perfect, and honestly all the Time Splitters games would be a cool way to reintroduce gamers to a great collection of forgotten arcade shooters. Number 4, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. Originally, I was going to put Army of 2 here, but we talked about Army of 2 way back in Chapter 4, so I got the next best thing. Literally, the next best thing. Blood on the Sand just feels like a blaxploitation version of Army of 2. You play as Mr. 50 himself and a member of G Unit, which if you pick anybody other than Tony Yayo, we have a problem. And you blast your way through this paramilitary group in the Middle East, all while 50 Cent's greatest hits are blasting in the background non-stop. It's crazy, man. You have not lived until you fought a helicopter to many men. Blood on the Sand was honestly one of the most fun games I've ever played for no reason. The gameplay isn't going to blow you away, it's not going to revolutionize co-op, nothing about the game stands out, but it's outright just fun and doesn't take itself too seriously, and we need games like that every now and then. I think honestly a lot of people might have skipped over this because it was just a 50 Cent game, you know? So I don't know. We had tons of games like that in the 2000s where it seemed like everybody who was famous had their own game. 50 Cent himself right now, he actually seems to be producing a lot of TV shows, so why not throw his hat and his likeness back into the world of gaming? I feel like this generation would eat up a game like 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. At the same time as the previously mentioned Time Splitters, Blood on the Sand was made backwards compatible on Xbox, but unfortunately it wasn't made available digitally, and people are charging a fortune for used copies of the game. A remaster would be a nice way to allow people who missed this game a chance to try out a sleeper hit. Where almost every game on this list is available digitally in some fashion, Blood on the Sand is not, and games like this run the risk of being lost to time. We really need to be better about preserving our games, guys, please. Number 3, Resident Evil Outbreak. I'm just gonna let you guys know, any top 7 list with games, you're probably going to have a Resident Evil on there. Now, whereas every game on this list is backwards compatible on Xbox or available on some platform digitally, Outbreak is not. Outbreak was the first instance of multiplayer in a Resident Evil, as players can band together as various civilians in Raccoon City trying to escape the infection. Outbreak was the definition of being ahead of its time. Online gaming on a console, that was a new and foreign concept in the early 2000s, and not many people were able to experience everything that Outbreak had to offer. Even if you were able to, Resident Evil Outbreak didn't feature voice chat, which is pretty critical in a game like this. They had an ad-lib system, but you really got to be able to tell people exactly what you need them to do. Outbreak was in that same category as Left 4 Dead, where if you didn't work together, it wasn't going to be a good time. And before we go any further, yes, I know there's those people out there who can solo the entire thing on hard and not get hit. Good for you. Similar to Time Splitters, Outbreak would benefit from a remaster that would implement online play. Me personally, didn't get to play much of this game as a kid because, well, it was pretty difficult having to rely on AI as you made your way through the levels. The gameplay for Outbreak at its very core is similar to that of the Resident Evil 1 remake that came a few years prior, but each character would have a unique tool or ability to help them survive. Not to mention, players would gradually succumb to the infection over time, forcing you to think quick on your feet. Outbreak was a unique game when it was released, but experiencing the game in its entirety was a luxury. Capcom has tried many times to have Resident Evil break into the world of multiplayer in the last few years, and so far, historically, they've all been misses. In fact, it seems that almost all spin-offs in this franchise are either bangers or complete fails. You ever notice that? But we can't really write off Outbreak yet without giving it a fair chance, so Capcom needs to seriously consider an HD port so that we can all finally experience what Outbreak has to offer. There's been fan servers and split-screen mods, but not everyone has a gaming PC, you know. An official release is the way to go, and I'm actually fairly confident in saying that of every game on this list, Outbreak has the biggest chance of getting a remaster, so fingers crossed Capcom does the right thing. Number 2, Saints Row 2. Considered by many fans to be the best in the series, Saints Row 2 is a classic sandbox game with no shortage of fun and engaging missions and side content. From a glance, it might look like a goofy game, and don't get me wrong, it is over the top with its B-movie vibes, but the story is really good, with all types of heart-wrenching and tense moments throughout the campaign. I really enjoyed doing all the activities, and the way each rival gang had its own set of missions and strongholds really kept the game fresh. Earning respect to progress the story was a neat way to incentivize players to see everything that Stillwater had to offer. Saints Row 2 was considered by some to be a Grand Theft Auto clone or parody, but I feel by doing that you're seriously selling the game short, as Saints Row 2 does a lot different and a lot better. GTA 4 only lets you have a pair of cars stashed in your parking spot, where Saints Row 2 lets you have them all, and if they blow up, so what? They'll just respawn right back in your garage. It's the abundance of little things like this, all the little things that are convenient and fun, that made Saints Row 2 so good. This one was actually, a little somber to talk about. For a long time, Volition had actually lost the source code for Saints Row 2, and this left the PC version in a massively broken state. It had tons of bugs, game-breaking glitches, the frame rate was all messed up. It was terrible. This was during the dark times of PC ports. However, in 2019, the source code was recovered, and community pillar Mike Idle Ninja Watson, famous for his many popular mods across the Saints Row franchise, which in turn led to him getting a community manager position at Volition, was leading the charge on the patch to make Saints Row 2 playable. Tragically, Idle Ninja would pass away in August of 2021 after a battle with stage 4 cancer. Mike chose to spend his last days contributing as much he can to the PC patch, but since his passing, Volition hasn't had anything to report on that front, and we can't help but feel that the project died with Mike. This would be disappointing, as Mike was under the impression that Volition would continue his work when his time came, but after all the negativity around the Saints Row franchise in the last couple of years, I wouldn't be shocked if Volition quietly stopped working on this patch. While the game is playable on Xbox through backwards compatibility, the PS3 version has had its server shut down. Like we stated earlier, the PC version is borderline unplayable without a series of mods, and even then, the mods can only do so much. If you don't have an Xbox, you really can't get the most out of Saints Row 2. Volition needs to right the ship here and drive Saints Row back to its roots. Now that I'm talking about it out loud, I think this game might benefit more from a remake than a remaster. That being said, Saints Row is still one of those timeless games, so remake or remaster, here's to hoping that this game gets another chance in the spotlight. Number 1, Call of Duty World at War. Remember how I mentioned earlier that every one of these lists is going to have a Resident Evil? I lied. It's either going to be Resident Evil or Call of Duty. I love both of those series so much. I played World at War last year with my friend Dennis, and man, this game has not aged well at all. It's ugly, it's janky, it's clunky. Well, but all that, it's still actually a really fun game to play. World at War is the first Call of Duty to have a co-op campaign as you and up to 3 friends battle across the Pacific and Eastern fronts in this haunting retelling of World War II. World at War was a dark and brutal game that didn't pull any punches. Its graphic depictions really showcased the horrors and atrocities of the Second Great War. It was the first Call of Duty in the series to feature gibbing, which further served to showcase the brutalities of war. All the missions in the campaign were really fun as they all had something different to offer, and the set pieces were really solid too. Fighting in the rainy jungles, the asylums, the mortar pits, the subway tunnels. Each mission had some flavor to it. It's also one of my favorite campaigns in the series too, because most Call of Duty games since 2007 are these deep thrillers with heroes and villains, espionage, twists, and conspiracies. World at War didn't have any of that. It was just a group of soldiers performing their duties, trying to save the world from an axis of darkness. In recent years, we've seen remasters of Call of Duty 4 and the original Modern Warfare 2, which I really hate that we have 2 Modern Warfare 2s. Infinity Ward should have thought something different, but I digress. Not exactly a foreign concept to Activision to remaster games, but the real question is this. Will we get a full remaster like we did with Call of Duty 4, or will we only get a standalone campaign like Modern Warfare 2? I obviously think I speak for everyone when I say we prefer a full remaster, as the multiplayer in World at War is pretty fun and it's still pretty unique within the Call of Duty canon, you know? You had those big maps that really lended itself to the sniping and the tank battles. It was awesome. And who can forget how iconic the Zombies mode was? Seriously, playing Der Riese with some of the modern quality of life features we've gotten in the years prior would be awesome. In fact, I think the Zombies mode would benefit the most, as the maps are just recycled and repurposed assets from campaign and multiplayer. And as long as they don't go too overboard, it would be nice to see these maps with a new, more original look. But honestly though, the Zombies mode was terrible. It had so many glitches. Like, there was this one glitch where if you fired the Wonder Rifle too close, it would cancel out your Juggernaut, so you would still go down in 2 hits, and the way you had to fix it was just to go down and rebuy Juggernaut. It was terrible. Also, because this was the first time you were fighting enemies that weren't dogs or humans, you were fighting zombies, the knifing animation kind of didn't really work. Knifing at that point was a stab animation, not a slash animation, so when you stab zombies, obviously they kind of just, they were like, oh, okay, you stabbed me? I'm just going to slap you twice, and then that's it, the game's over. It was terrible. You would get stuck in the zombies, so knifing was just like, it was a last minute thing, or you only did it with insta-kill or the Bowie knife. It was terrible. You were really in the trenches, no pun intended. World at War is available on PC, and it was made backwards compatible on Xbox, and take a shot every time you hear me say backwards compatible on Xbox. But the servers are barren, and even if you did get into a match, multiplayer belongs to the hackers. It is a shame that the older Call of Duties are borderline unplayable because of things like this. I tried to play Black Ops 2 a couple months back and it was just wall hackers galore. But hey, what can you do? Well, hold on. Actually, we do know what we can do. We can just remaster the game and nobody has to worry about the hackers. Yay. World at War is up there as one of my favorite Call of Duties of all time, and I'm always open to playing it again. Same with all the Call of Duties, really. They have great replayability, which in turn makes remastering the game more appealing. I really love the remasters we've got of Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2, as they stayed true to the original games while adding little enhancements, and getting something like that for what I consider one of the seminal World War II shooters would just be perfect. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what games you think need a remaster. Inshallah, I will see you in the next chapter.